name's AC. That's not really important. In 2010 and into 11, I wrote a little book called How I Toppled Western Civilization. And it's something I've been wanting to share for a while. So, without further ado, we'll be doing a series of these for, we'll just call it grown-up bedtime stories. Not in the grody, porny sense. Well, not yet anyway. We'll talk. Anyway, without further ado, I present to you How I Toppled Western Civilization. Written by me, starting in Episode 1, Hindsight. Chapter 0, The Greatest Song I Ever Heard. I was sure she was blonde. Absolutely sure. Yep, a blonde. I never forget those kind of details, at least not lately. So, yeah, go ahead, order the next round, and I'll continue. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the bar. That bar. The bar, the booths and tables were all empty. The patrons gone for the night, which just left me and 3 other people. The wait staff had left us to ourselves, and last call had passed without comment. I could smell the porridge of odors ranging from smoke to perfume to beer and wine and other typical tavern scents. It was a heady brew that lets you know exactly where you were. Even so, the emptiness of the place gave it a dominating, oppressive closeness. And what were you doing in an empty bar? Short answer, something that 2 of the 3 were absolutely sure they were doing the right thing. I had been on a ride up to then, caring at some points, convinced of my disbelief at others, and the whole time trying to get the world to stop spinning under my feet. They say life is a series of snapshots, a collection of moments. No, I don't hold much to that. I prefer to think of it as a sequence of collisions between objects. It can be soft, violent, cold, fluid, or annihilating. It all depends on the objects. And as for the object collisions that brought me to this point, I wish I had a better metaphor now. But like I said, the bar was empty except for the 4 of us. So I slammed the shot glass down on the table and then, in true form, shucked it over my shoulder, hearing it chip and shatter on the floor. And I was number 3. The stack of shot glasses on the table was 3 layers high with a footprint about as big as a sheet of paper. If it came to it, we'd be there all night. So where does that leave us, I said, feeling the burn of the whiskey, which tasted old enough to buy its own whiskey in the States, trickle down my throat. The third person, one of the 3 that did not agree with the others, knocked back her shot glass. She grimaced against it before slamming the glass rim down on the table. Leaves you with no place to hide. It leaves them, she pointed a polished nail at my 2 contemporaries, with no options except to give me what I want. So I picked up the bottle and poured a splash of the potent alcohol into a pair of waiting shot glasses. The burble of the liquid into it was the only sound. Well, I should think in light of recent events, you'd maybe consider it a wash. I got ahead for a little while, and then you, and then me again, so I say we call it a night. I slammed the shot, and again chucked the glass. Will you stop throwing those? This isn't Dodge City, she said. Well, what would you know about Dodge City, I snarled. The booze was keeping me limber, but in the same vein it was making me just belligerent enough to get off topic. I felt a small hand on my shoulder and a whisper in my ear. This was your plan? To get drunk and argue about the Wild West? I turned my head, feeling the world drift around for a moment thanks to whiskey, and looked right at the voice. No, my plan was to get her drunk and argue about the Wild West. Across the table from me, she gulped a shot and slammed the glass. I can't hear you, he realized. I hadn't realized it at all, so I poured another round of shots. We both took the round together, and that's when I felt my inner philosopher peek out from behind the layers of booze in retrospect. What are we doing here? I said, not really talking to her at all. So when she started to talk, I wasn't too interested and went right to my answer. We're here because of belief and intention. Another round in the glasses, another glass chucked over the shoulder. We're here because what I believe isn't what you intended to handle. You want something that isn't part of the world and hasn't been for so long you don't even know what it looks like. I could pick it out of my ear right now and you'd be as likely to ID it as a chimp would be able to tell the difference between Syrah and Kandinsky. Another round in the glasses, another glass chucked over the shoulder. She interrupted me. You're quite insufferable, you know. And you're just upset because when you wake up in the morning, you'll still be you. I Oh, that'd piss me off every day. She glared at me, her dark eyes, but catching the light just enough to reveal the fire that burned within. She hated my guts. I'm a reasonable person. I can retain a good amount of objectivity in the face of just about anything. But in her case, it was stupid just how much utter objectivity I was willing to apply to my assessment as to why it was she had nothing but ire for me since I first saw her. I may have slept with her or not called her so many years ago, I can't remember it. I may have had the misfortune to have done that to someone she knew, and thus, by reputation, be labeled a nefarious philanderer. I may have simply not returned a library book she needed to complete her doctoral thesis, and thus she failed her final review board and was forced to become a somewhat less glamorous research expert rather than an actual doctor, and after a long, fruitless search for the perpetrator, found the book among my things and waited years for the right time to strike. Or, and this one is most likely scenario, swung my libido around like a medieval flail, smashing apart things with reckless abandon. And well, let's just say it left a mark. Those 4 options, the last one is probably the most likely. I'm almost 90% certain. But I'm getting off track again. Sorry, where was I? Okay. Right, she hated my guts. She poured the shots this time. When she slid the glass across the time-worn mahogany of the table to me, I caught it smoothly. You have no concept of what it's like to be me. True, I said, but you haven't exactly been forthcoming with the concept of explaining. I lifted the glass and it was down the hatch for both of us. The liquor was really going to work now. My limbs felt weightless and my back teeth were starting to float. I better make my point quick before I went cross-eyed and lost track of what I was after. So I flung the glass and slapped my hand on the table. I barely felt my skin tingle with the impact. Glasses in the stack clinked noticeably. I watched her pour another shot. This was by and large the most unique situation I've ever been in, involving shots of whiskey. The stakes were higher than any drinking game, and the stage that had brought us there was borderline insanity. The jukebox, just minutes before, had been alive with colored lights and blaring out music ranging from the emotionally stunted to the momentarily motivated, to the honestly enjoyable, to the unique, quirky indie rock stages. As I looked at the front of the machine, I had a thought. What was the greatest song you ever heard? I asked her, buying time. What? I said, what is the greatest song you've ever heard? What does it have to do with anything? She hissed. I ran my tongue over my teeth as I formulated my answer. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I personally think the greatest song I've ever heard has nothing to do with taste. It has to do with context. Why are you telling me this? The world's at crossroads and you want to sit here and talk music over shots, she said. The voice over my shoulder whispered in my ear again. She's right. What are you doing? I gestured at the voice to back off. I knew what I was doing. Mostly. Just answer the question, sweetheart, I pushed. Don't call me that. Ever again. I'll consider it if you answer the question. She took a hard breath, crossed her arms, and leaned back from the table. I don't know, probably Dance of the Raindrops by Chopin. I swear. If I told you I've never heard of it, what would you say? I wouldn't be surprised. You probably have as much knowledge of classical music as anyone who fancies rock and roll, she said pointedly. Well, consider this, I said proudly. Halo 3. Her eyebrows drew together. What? Halo 3, I repeated. My patience is wearing thin, she groaned. I'll help you out here. Since you're obviously in need of a lesson in modern pop culture, I started. In 2007, a campaign of advertisements was started for the video game Halo 3. But one of the more unique areas of the drive to promote the release of the game was the Believe ad series. It included a magazine and TV ads, and in my opinion, the most original part was the website dedicated to the Believe campaign. Now, on this website, they built a scale model of a battle sequence taking place within the game universe. It was a virtual tool that toured this huge model that was part of the website, and as you moved through the battle, the song that played in the tour, as well as in the TV commercial, was, that's right, your beloved Dance of the Raindrops by Chopin. I assume you have a point? I do. The greatest song you ever heard carried a huge amount of weight on one of the most successful entertainment releases in history. Your favorite song helped the success of a medium that you have no love for at all. Like I said though, context is the most important thing. I'll bet if I looked through your music library, I wouldn't find anything by Chopin. You just say that's the greatest song you've ever heard to be pretentious, like the same way most literature students spout on and on about Moliere or Shakespeare. They don't actually like them. They just assume that expounding the virtues of such venerable works makes them in some way deeper or more learned than the rest of us, or perform more socially relevant contemporary stuff like Pressfield, Klosterman, or Stephen King. They, and by they, I include you, aren't honest about the things that bring out the passion in their soul. And if I had to guess, I really would have expected you to say something like Bad Reputation by Joan Jett, or maybe Calling the Maker by Amy Allen. I beamed. She looked at the 2 glasses she had poured before she said anything. And that's supposed to prove what? And it's all connected. I began pointing at things as I listed them. Your music, my video games, her poetry, this whiskey, Katie, her purse, and this bar. All these things you're so concerned with are so entangled together you can't possibly predict or attempt to calculate the movement. It's a little late to try and preach, isn't it? She rolled her eyes. You're not at least curious, I said. She reached for the shot but stopped asking. About what? Greatest song I ever heard. She let out a sigh. I played along. Fine. What's the greatest song you have ever heard? I smiled and said, honestly, We Used to Be Friends by the Dandy Warhols. So, remember, it's about context. She rolled her eyes again. So I'm supposed to be impressed that you picked some off-the-beaten-track song from a band I've never heard of. I smacked my hand on the table. Wow. Missed the point much. It's proving to be a moving target. Fair to say, I admitted. I was determined to make my point, if for no other reason, to make sure it was said before anything else could happen. I don't care if you're impressed or not. The song is, like I said, the greatest song I ever heard. I think I listened to it at least 10 times a month, if not more. Because of the context I heard it the first time, that's what makes it the greatest song I ever heard. So the context being what? Well, this was the first song in 6 months at the time that put me in a good enough mood to put on a suit and go out for the night, like years ago. I always remember something like that. If you ever get tired of the sound of your own voice, she growled. I picked up my glass. I didn't drink it yet. Just during sex, I can't hear the woman's. She lifted the glass but stopped and set it back down. She pointedly said, this is all your fault. I laughed a bit. Of course. A woman wants to place blame. Of course, how very typical and drastically unoriginal. Oh, you are so... I cut her off. I wasn't in the mood for a round of label the evil male. I'm charming, intelligent, well-read. Take your pick. I'm a rich tapestry of flattering adjectives. Conceited. She spat. I'll drink to that. Down the hatch, over the shoulder. What? Said it was reasonably objective. Can't help, she made a good point. Okay. That last shot, that was a game changer. But one more, and I'd be about as useful as sails on a sports car. So I grabbed the bottle and started to pour, but feigned a thoughtful moment and set it down on the table, keeping my hand on it. It was now or never. I leaned forward over the table a little. Now, regardless of your opinion of me and whatever it was that I did or didn't do to you, this isn't really about us. Agreed? So like you said, where does that leave us? I asked. She chewed on her answer for a minute, a really long minute. Remember what I said about collision of objects? Well, there's an addendum to that. Watch for debris. When things collide, it's never neat and tidy. Never